जय हिंद एंड आज बातचीत को आगे बढ़ाएंगे कर्नल गौरव डिमरी के साथ. कर्नल डिमरी इज एक्स आर्मर्ड कोर सर, कमांडेड, then approached PMR, did his MBA in HR from FDI Gurgaon, and has been in the industry as a senior HR functionary for almost a decade. Sir has exposure to both manufacturing side of the human resources part, as well as now he is with the prestigious Sharda group of companies as the head HR, and Sharda Group is a services organization. Today, we have invited him to kind of share his insights on he himself having served the uniform for 20 plus years and now been in the corporate for almost a decade. What it is that should be the steps, or as to how senior officers, colonels, and above can go about in finding their footing in the corporate HR functional role. So that would be the agenda of today's discussion. So welcome to the talk today, sir.
Thank you very much. It's always a pleasure to interact with you. It's been 2 decades in the services and about 6+ years in the corporate. So that way.
सर मैं थोड़ा सा आपसे जो ओपनिंग क्वेश्चन है वो राउंड अबाउट मैनर में पूछता हूँ, and that's between two Fauji's. What, how does the corporate look at senior officers, colonels, brigadiers, generals when they are coming out of army? Is the corporate awed by them कि यार ये कितना काम करके आए होंगे? Corporate finds it difficult to differentiate. I mean, how do they, उनका क्या सोच क्या चलता है सीनियर रैंक ऑफिसर्स को लेकर के?
So, as for the question of the corporates getting awed by the stature and the rank of the officer, the answer is both yes and no. Why? Because everybody and anybody in corporate or any other sector would knows the steep pyramidal structure of the services. So one they are all the corporates are aware that people rising to select ranks at the level of colonels, brigadiers, majors have undergone a process of a very tough internal screening with limited number of vacancies and only a minuscule percentage of people rising up to senior ranks. And secondly, when people, everybody is aware that when an officer rises to senior ranks at command levels, command positions, it brings in greater powers in terms of and scope or nature of work, in terms of not only the number of manpower to be managed, but also financial responsibilities, operational responsibilities, training related responsibilities, welfare related responsibilities. So while a person may rise in rank through a tough selection procedure, he or she also has a higher notches of financial, administrative, and operational responsibilities. So that aspect, yes. But having said so, that to say that the corporates would say that if a person has risen to senior rank, so he's ideal for corporates, that may not be a very correct assessment to be made, because the corporates work on a different dynamics and a different dimension and scale of aspects. So the relevant skills which have been acquired and the relevance of an individual's service experience to a consumerate position, to a corresponding position in the corporate with the required skill sets, gets into the right time, the right mind frame of the corporates. Otherwise, it also may go slightly on the other side, that the officer has now served for these many decades in the services. He or she may not be getting molded into our kind of an environment where we are less formal and we are less process oriented, but more into directive style, so on and so forth. So that way, the corporate value that experience, the corporates value those qualities and the commitment which the senior officers or officers at select ranks display. But that didn't translate into an automatic corporate role. That is slightly debated.
So they do understand that the senior officers and the select rank officers have been put through a more, a greater scrutiny in terms of their skill sets, and the rigor is more, but they still need to kind of come up with the required mindset for being in the HR role. My follow-up question would be, why would you recommend HR to the senior officers, colonels, brigadiers, generals? Why as a career choice? What it is that they bring on the table, and what it is that corporate kind of benefits from them. So, I mean, where is the symbiosis in this?
A very relevant and pertinent question, Captain. Well, now again, large organizations, especially in the core sector and the manufacturing activity in as we move from 3 trillion to 5 trillion economy, uh, the services sector and the manufacturing sector both are expanding. And manufacturing or core sector continues to remain a major part of our economic activity. And as that increases, there are a lot of aspects of manpower into these organizations, how that manpower gets recruited, how's that manpower managed, how's the manpower given adequate compensation, benefits, facilities, and welfare, and the budgets are huge. So when the numbers are large in terms of manpower, the workforce, and when the budgets are also equally large, you see, large core manufacturing setup companies have, they have got their own in-house townships with all the facilities given, either due to the remoteness of the location or the requirement of providing those facilities. So you have the large corporate houses wherever their manufacturing locations are, they have mini cantonments with the workers, the staff, the families, the children, with schooling, shopping malls, transportation, club facilities, all they're like akin to small cantonments in remote locations. Where do you get somebody with that perspective? Where do you get somebody with that ability to visualize and translate plans into such facilities for the corporates? Where, because that kind of the understanding is more found suitable with the senior leadership of the defense services, because that is part and parcel of their profile. And the challenges which one faces, not only in planning, but execution of such large projects, bringing in large manpower, bringing in, creating facilities, setting up the infrastructure. And while the technical people will bring in the plant, the machinery, the equipment, and other processes, the balance of the thing requires a lot of careful consideration and planning. So there, that advantage happens, especially in the core sector. So definitely, there is those skill sets which are required.
Right, sir. Sir, so there is a common refrain amongst the senior officers that when they are seeking opportunities in the corporate, age kind of becomes a barrier or a limiting factor. Would you be able to recommend some roles or positions by which uh, this aspect can be mitigated?
So as far as age is considered, this is a factor which is existent and which plays a role definitely. But it is today, it is not in corporate sector. Even you find in government jobs also, at the senior positions, the age profile has gradually come down. Today, at the level of joint secretaries or IGs, it's about 18, 20 years of service. The civil service officers get such appointments. So similarly in corporate, yes, that impacts. Why? Because the average age profile at the leadership level, at the top leadership level of the private sector also has come down. And across the globe, this phenomena exists. Having said so, the functioning of HR or HR and administration, especially in non-services sector, where there is huge blue-collar workforce to be managed, it requires people with sufficient experience, seniority, and maturity to lead the HR and administrative teams, to guide them in a manner that the overall organization of the climate remains positive and conducive, and the policies of the organization get implemented in a very, very defined and deliberated manner. because larger organizations, uh, one cannot go, one cannot have an error in creating an environment where the workforce feels that the steps are negative for them, have a negative outcome for them, and then that has an impact on the overall productivity and the revenue of the organization. So that is why sufficient experience and maturity is required, which we carry. But yes, age will definitely play uh, a role, and to in order to offset that, one again, if one has tenated crucial appointments, which are where one has undertaken planning and execution and implementation of HR policies, HR related scope of work, from recruitment to training to heading CAT A or CAT B training establishments, welfare projects, infrastructure development, even administration of cantonments. So those aspects, when they get highlighted, it gives an advantage that yes, while the age may be on the plus side, the depth of that experience adds onto the profile, while to give advantage to a role which is suitable for such organization.
Okay. So from what I understand, what you're saying, sir, especially the manufacturing setup, because they have a large component of blue collared workforce. So therefore, there are a lot of internal pulls and pressures in managing the or rather to say, keeping up with the productivity level and ever enhancing, meeting the demand of the market. So a very fine balance needs to be struck between the business needs as well as the employee needs, and that is where a senior person has the required maturity and finesse to be able to handle, and that is where they can uh, offer their expertise, and age may not be that much of a limiting factor if the projection is right.
Absolutely, and very rightly you have brought out those aspects which one was trying to convey. And secondly, you would notice that the large manufacturing hubs of ours are still not primarily in the vicinity of metros. We're still looking at large industrial complexes in the interiors of Gujarat, Rajasthan, even UP, Madhya Pradesh, where probably officers with senior profile whose family responsibilities with respect to education of children and children has more or less been fulfilled, and they would not have a constraint of location. Then, to start with and to gain that experience, one can look for the opportunities which exist, because organizations look for bringing in senior profiles on services into these locations, and bringing that requisite experience and maturity, because these locations, because of our experience of having served in such similar locations and even more difficult locations, adds on to our work.
Right. So I mean, since add on to a small input is that being from the real estate, another reason as to why the bigger plants and townships of manufacturing are set up in remote areas is also it helps in keeping the real estate costs manageable, and
Yeah.
so the balance between getting HR vis-a-vis the real estate cost is
Yes.
it tilts in favor of, because the swath of land required is much bigger. So
Yes.
one
Absolutely.
one cannot have, it's not just an office space near a in a metropolitan. We are talking about thousands of acres of lands or hundreds of acres of land. So one has to go to places which are not exactly arable or otherwise prime
Correct.
real estate, and that is where an armed forces experience of having managed similar locations with families with day-to-day operational requirements, running the factories and all,
Absolutely.
can come in handy, and these officers would be preferred for their similar exposure.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Okay. Would
Absolutely.
you be able to point out some, like you said, Madhya Pradesh, Rajasthan, two, three of these, any other places where such industrial clusters are coming up and officers
So,
can?
so as I said, parts of Rajasthan, Uh,
Mhm.
Gujarat, yes, it is, you're aware, the huge industrial complexes uh, in near Ahmedabad, Anjar, Sanad, and even Jamnagar. Then you have parts of Maharashtra, the interiors of Maharashtra where industrial complexes are there. Down south, there are locations. Even Chhattisgarh, we have the Vedanta set up at a place called Jharsuguda. Unheard of, but huge complex at Jharsuguda. You have places in Madhya Pradesh where are huge industrial setups coming up. Parts of Odisha, you have the Jindals having huge mega plants at a place called Angul. MP, you have locations in Hoshangabad, in Ratlam, in and around Bhopal, a location like Mandi Dweep. So while they're in proximity of Bhopal, but yet they offer those large industrial complexes in core sector where the opportunities are available. And you're aware that even the government is looking to develop the northeastern region, especially from terms of infrastructure development and power projects. I remember in 2007, I was in the remote areas of Arunachal. There were five power projects, and all five power projects were head project managers were service officers because they had no issues with sufficient seniority at the superannuated with the brigadier's rank also there was one officer. So they were all senior officers who had most largely fulfilled their domestic requirements and were had no qualms in coming into these locations, bring in their expertise, gain experience, and then move on. So those five power plants, the project managers were from services. So ample opportunities exist. It is there. I mean, understand and utilize these opportunities for one's own professional growth.
Awesome. So just to sum it up, the senior officers have an opportunity in the upcoming infra and manufacturing setups, given the fact that India is progressing quite rapidly, and we are going to. I mean, the more economic growth we have, more and more manufacturing and infra we are going to add. And these are the places where the corporates are actually looking for this kind of a talent, and these officers have the required skill set, they can contribute, and the limitation which they feel of competing with younger people in the metros and all can be obviated, and they can.
Can be updated. Yes, absolutely.
That is a very useful insight, sir. As a parting note, anything you would like to recommend to the senior officers, the select rank officers, flag rank officers, as to how they can plan their career in HR after the contribution to the nation?
At the level at which we're talking about, at that sufficiently senior level, before they transit into civil world, again, they must highlight the career highlights in terms of quantitative advantages which they brought in while tenanting particular appointments, especially related to the HR domain related verticals. They must highlight certain certifications which they can acquire while being in service. In service, they can acquire those certifications and highlight. Also, be part of certain projects at huge projects which can highlight, give them that relevant highlight to their CV, and they can also be part of advisory groups at while being in service and utilize that experience uh, to then come out and be part at leadership positions or at the board level also at senior level advisors to large corporate houses, and with their knowledge and understanding of having served with 3+, if we are talking of flag rank officers of 35 plus years of service across the length and breadth of the country and tenures abroad, they can bring it that world view and that advice which the board or the promoters would look for with the experience that can be brought in at that level.
No. Thank you so much, sir. This has been very, very insightful. Grateful for your time, sir. Thank you so much, sir. Jai Hind, sir.
Thank you very much. And again, compliments to you for the work which you are undertaking for the fraternity in UPSC.
Right,
It's a
sir.
pleasure.
Jai Hind, sir.